another band here so I don't have to switch between different bands. So if you do have a setup for that, that would be good. I can add some modifications as we go. And then we also need, it's optional, but a lightweight. So 2 light weights if you have them. Otherwise, you can also use a band for that. So those are some of the pieces of equipment we will be doing today. A reminder, you can have your camera on if you want. And if that works for you, that's great. If not, you can have your camera off. Won't be making any individual corrections, but if you do want to stay at the end to ask about form or anything like that, I am definitely happy to help you out with that. So let's get started. I'm just gonna change my screen here. Okay, so we're gonna get into some movement. We're gonna start with some breathing. And I've been working a lot with my clients on working on a lot of stability within the core, but also thinking about our rib expansion because it's really important in terms of expanding the diaphragm. And so I figured we'd work on a little bit of that today. So everyone's just getting situated right now, but when you are comfortable, whether you're seated or standing, I want you to just kind of get grounded. You can close your eyes if that feels good. And from here, we're just going to start thinking about how we're inhaling. And so we really want to think about expanding everything first in the belly, then in the ribs, and then once we get up even further up into the chest, and then we're going to exhale and come in. Now, a simple little trick I like to teach people is if you want to put a hand on the ribs, and you can start feeling those ribs expanding, and you can kind of notice that you'll feel your hand lifting as you inhale. So I'm starting on the one side first because then you can exhale and switch to the other side, and you can see if your rib expansion is equal on both sides. You can start playing around with it. It's a little bit of an observation today. Inhaling, exhaling. If it helps, you can also add both hands now. Seeing if we're getting full expansion on both sides. And exhaling. And if you're not, that is something we can work at Ocean, but also when we do it, we're thinking about how can we get more air into that other side so that we can even out. So having your hands here is good for proprioception. You might also be tight in this area, and so we're going to move into some rolling out, and that will also help with releasing that. So we'll take one more breath here, taking the hands away now and seeing if there's any difference. Big inhale. And exhale. Good. Okay. So like I said, we're going to move into some release. So if you have any type of hard ball or anything, you can grab that, or just your hands is totally fine. But I have a peanut here today. And so we're just going to start in the pecs first. Just rolling out the pecs. So I always tell people to stay nice and loose on that side that you're rolling out. Find what is tender or something that just needs to be rolled out a little bit. The harder you push, the more intense it'll get. Good. And then we can actually go into the lats under here. So ideally you want to lie on this. So if you are comfortable doing that, you could go and lie on your side onto this and kind of roll around on it. But for sake of simplicity, you can also just have a hand here, or you can actually lift up and get into it as well. And you will feel a little bit of tenderness in there. And for some, this is going to be super tight, and that is possibly why breathing sometimes is a little harder. Okay. So obviously you can only get so far here, and that's why lying on a bed or the ground is really great to get in all of this muscle here. And then we're going to switch sides. Remember relaxing that side. Maybe finding an area that needs a little more work. And you can stick to that. Good. And then again, we can either lift the arm or have it out in front of us, whatever feels good. At the end, we'll also talk a little about some of the stretches that you can do in this area. This sometimes feels good. Sometimes going in with a hand too might feel better. Good. It's also going to be really important because we're going to be doing a little bit of pulling today. And so we got a little bit of proprioception here to say, okay, this is where the muscles are. This is what they feel like. And that's what we want to engage today. Good. Okay. So we'll relax there. We're just going to get into some neck movements. So tucking the chin in, looking down towards the floor, relaxing those shoulders. And then from here, we're going to actually roll. So we're going to bring the nose to the right armpit, staying nice and low. And then we're going to come back to center and roll to the other side. Just creating like half circles here with the nose. And then we're going to come to the right, and we're going to bring that nose up and roll the head backwards as we create a nice big O with the nose. And then come back to the left. And then we're going to go from the left and go back towards the right. The head is going back, making sure those shoulders are down. And then come back to the right. Good. And then we're going to come back to neutral, and we're just going to look left and right. Good. And then we're going to take right ear to right shoulder. Just doing a nice tip here and relaxing those arms. Good. So just switching from each side now. I'll do one more on each. And then we're going to bring arms up overhead. If going overhead feels good. And from here, we're going to just squeeze those shoulder blades down, bringing those elbows down towards their sides. Palms are facing me. And we're going to go all the way back up. Good. So nice and controlled here, engaging that core as best as we can. Thinking about staying grounded, whether that's pushing into the ground or thinking about our feet into the ground. Staying nice and stable like trees, reaching up as high as you can this time. And then as we bring those arms down, we're going to tuck the chin in and roll down through the spine. Now that can look different for different people. You can either roll down to your lap, or you can start slowly going down towards the ground, towards your toes, whatever that might be. And once we're at the bottom here, I want us to hang here for a minute. So find what's comfortable. And we're going to go back to our breathing, thinking about expanding the rib cage, opening up as much as we can as we exhale down the spine. Inhaling, opening up the rib cage. Exhaling all the way down. We'll do one more breath here. And exhale, we're going to slowly come up. Lifting that chest, we're going to look up to the ceiling, bringing either the arms to our side or behind us. Taking one big breath here. As we exhale, we're going to come out to arms to the sides. And then we're going to come in and give us a big bear hug. And then we're going to open back up. And we're going to switch arms. Really squeezing those shoulders, making sure the shoulder blades are down. Good. Opening up again. And then we're going to go one more time here. And exhaling, coming back to center. Good. Okay. So from here, we're going to grab our bands. So we're going to grab a band that isn't attached to anything. So whatever that band is for you, what I would say is choosing a band that's kind of medium resistance. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring our elbows nice and tight in towards us. Palms are going to be facing each other. And we're going to bring our hands out to the side, squeezing those shoulder blades back, keeping those elbows sucked into the side. So if you imagine a piece of paper to your side, we don't want to drop those pieces of paper. Good. Again, sitting up nice and tall. Now, your other option too is if you don't have a band, you can also do this with dumbbells, or just doing the motion works great too. And really thinking about every time we pull, we're squeezing those shoulder blades down, squeezing them together, and then slowly coming back in, staying nice and controlled today. Good, we got one more here. And notice there's not a lot of movement, so that movement doesn't have to be big here. We're working on small muscles, and that's okay. Okay, so we're gonna grab dumbbells now. And you can do this with a band if you don't have any weights, but I prefer using the dumbbell. If you were using the band, you can have it either under your feet or under a wheel, and we're going to be pressing overhead. So that's how you can use the band. If you don't have that, just doing the motion works as well. So what we're going to do, I'm just coming over here so I don't flip backwards. But what we're going to do is we're going to bring palms to our sides. Palms are facing each other, and we're going to press overhead. So today we're focusing on palms facing each other and pressing overhead. Now, when we do this, there's this misconception that people want to also lift the shoulders, but we actually want the shoulders to stay down when we do this. And at the same time, we're also thinking about those ribs again, thinking about ribs are staying stacked on top of each other over the pelvis. So if you keep continuing going, I can kind of explain, but we don't want to, when we lift, we don't want to lift our chest when we do this. We want to stay nice and in alignment here. So staying up, staying nice and stacked as we press overhead. Good. We got a couple more here. Now, if balance is an issue, as you can see, I backed up to something, so balance is kind of not as much of an issue. You can also just do one arm and then switch sides. That is another variation. Okay, we're going to grab the band again. We're doing this 3 rounds. So grabbing the band, we're going to go back to our external rotation. So for those who are using the band, you can start using the band. I'm going to demo it with the weights this time. So keeping the elbows in nice and tight, palms are facing each other. And we're just doing nice light motion here, going out towards the side. Again, notice not a lot of movement. If you're really tight, you'll have even less range of motion. And that's okay. As long as we're squeezing those shoulder blades back, we're feeling it in the backs of our shoulders here. Good. And 10. Good. Okay, grabbing those weights if you're needing them for the overhead press. Switching again right into overhead press. So palms are facing each other and we're going right overhead. Staying nice and stacked, nice and straight as you go. And then if doing one arm at a time, that works too. So you can go one and then the other. Good. Remembering to breathe here. So when we breathe, we're thinking about exhaling on the work. So exhaling as we go up. And last one. Good. Okay, grabbing those bands. If you're using your bands or using those dumbbells like I showed you. And we are going into external rotation one last time, keeping those elbows nice and tight. Keeping a straight line with that band as we pull them out. Good. So you'll notice with each of these sets that we're doing a pulling exercise, and then we're doing a pushing exercise. And so for those who use mobility devices, we want to get in is more pulling than we normally do every day because we're doing a lot of pushing. So we can help balance out those shoulders. Good. Okay, one last one here. And rest. Good. Okay, grabbing those dumbbells one last time here for this exercise. Bringing those palms to each other at the shoulder height and pressing overhead. Staying nice and neutral, nice and stacked. Doing one arm at a time if that feels good. If you're using a band, you will have to probably do one at a time. Good. Exhaling as we go up. One more here. And relax. Good. Okay, so we'll sit that. I'm just looking. We'll need one dumbbell, so keep it close to you for this next one. But to start, we're gonna grab a band. And like I said, I have one that's anchored. That's kind of like belly button height, whether you're sitting or standing. And we're gonna do one arm rowing. So when we do set up for this, you can see me here. I have two ends of the band. And so double arm on this or single arm on this is a little too much. And so what I normally do is hold one end while I row with the other end, and that's okay here. So if you do have it tied and you need less resistance, that's the way to do that. Otherwise, we're going to get right into a single arm row here. So if we are standing, thinking about a little bit of a knee bend. If we're sitting up nice and tall. And we're just doing one arm at a time here. So really thinking about pulling back, keeping the elbow nice and tight. And staying nice and controlled. You want a little bit of a challenge. You can have both ends of the band hold in while we hold one and pull with the other. So that's a little progression here if you want a little extra. Otherwise, we are just pulling with the one. And from here, we're going to switch sides. So switching sides, again, sitting up nice and tall, standing up nice and tall with a little bit of knee bend. Pulling all the way back. Now, if you don't have an anchor point and you're struggling to figure out an anchor point, you can also find something like if you're in a wheelchair, you can tie it to your front of your chair, and you can also think about pulling up like this. You also can get rid of that band and just use some dumbbells and just be doing this rowing motion. Otherwise, if you have a desk, anchoring it to the lower hand of the desk, that chair works great too if you're sitting in a chair. Couple more here. Good. And then we're gonna rest here. Okay, so we're doing 3 rounds again, so keep that close. And we're gonna grab one weight this time, or just an object. If you have like a ball or a pillow, that works too. If you want a little weight, a dumbbell works. So we're gonna do some wheel ups. So what that's gonna look like is we're gonna have, so for me, I have a dumbbell, so I'm gonna have a hand on each end. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna rotate to one side. Think about rotating the whole, as much as you can with that body, and then we're gonna rotate to the other side, coming back to neutral, and then we're gonna press up. Okay, so rotating to one, to the other, coming to neutral every time, and going straight up along our body here. Good. And I really want everyone to really focus on that twist. And so to get a little more out of the twist, we're watching where that weight or that object goes before we go up and overhead. And when we go overhead, we're thinking about staying nice and stacked. So again, ribs over hips, not bringing the chest up or the shoulders up. We're keeping nice and neutral when we go overhead. And exhaling as we go up. Yeah, one more here. And we're gonna relax it. Good. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the band. If you're using a band or if you're using a dumbbell for the single arm row. So getting set up there. So again, like I said, if you need to find an anchor point, find what works. If you can't find one at this height, that's okay. But what we really want to focus on is the rowing motion here. And we're doing single arm today to really focus on keeping everything, especially on the other side, nice and controlled and stable while we pull back on the right side. Good. So notice too, the band is staying nice and aligned here. We're not kind of like going up and around here. We're staying in one fluid single line as we pull back. Squeezing the shoulder blade, really focusing on that squeeze at the end of the pull as we slowly go back to the anchor point. Then we're going to switch sides here and start on that side. So let's focus a little bit on our breath now that we got a little bit of our cueing in. So focusing again, exhaling on the work. So the work here is the pull. So we're exhaling as we pull back. Making sure we're sitting up tall. Last one here. And relax. Good. Okay, grabbing your object or your dumbbell back into wheel up. Again, notice I'm anchoring myself. So we're twisting, and now we are pressing overhead. Following that dumbbell with our eyes, really seeing how far we can twist, but staying nice and controlled. So notice I'm not whipping it to each side. It's nice and controlled rotations. And then going overhead, thinking about shoulder blades down. Exhaling on the up. And lots of motions here. So if you have to slow it down, that's okay too. Get the rotation in, reset back at center, and then go overhead. One more here. And press. Good. Okay, going back to the bands one last time. Keeping that dumbbell close to you. Letting everyone get situated. We're going to do this one more time, and then we'll do a water break before we move on. So again, single arm rows here, staying nice and in line every time we pull back. Again, if we want a little extra, pulling both ends of the band back while we hold one and pull with the other. A little bit of isometric on the one side. Two more here. Exhaling on that pull. And then we're going to switch sides. Notice too, elbow is going as far back as we can get it. So hopefully we can get it. So if you're at a good resistance, the elbow can go past your body, straight back. We got two more here. And rest. Good. Okay, last one of wheel ups. Grabbing our dumbbell or our object. Getting comfortable here. Anchor myself. Okay, so grabbing that weight, rotating, following with our eyes, pressing overhead, staying nice and controlled as we go up. Now, I haven't added much variation, but if overhead is too much, go right in front. Always go right in front if overhead is too much. Perhaps going overhead, you can only go halfway, that's okay. Getting in that motion and starting to build on that is totally fine. And two more here. And relax. Good. Okay, we're going to take a minute here to grab some water if you haven't grabbed water yet. Getting situated. The next one we're going to do is a post delt row. And so I'm going to use the band that was anchored. But if you want, you can also use a dumbbell. You also don't need it anchored. I find it's easier for balance and stuff, but I'll give you a couple variations for that. But if you want to grab stuff for that, grab it now. And then our next exercise, we're going to do some paint shakers. So our pushing motion, and we will do that with a dumbbell or an object. So we're going to go into our post out row first, and post out row is it's a smaller muscle than what we were doing with our single arm row. And so you might have to find a way to decrease resistance, whether you switch bands, whether you give yourself a little more slack. So I'm going to show you 3 variations, and then I will stick to probably this one just for simplicity. But first one, so if you do have an anchor point, I would see if you can get it kind of at a little lower than shoulder height, so that when we pull, we're pulling across, the band's going across our body and our arm is going out to the side. Okay, so that's first variation. Again, it's a small muscle, so a lot of resistance might be hard to get out here. And so try and give yourself some slack on that band. Another option is to grab the dumbbell, and see if I can show you here. What you're going to do is you're going to either have a pillow on your lap and leaning over, or bending at the hips and hinging, bending at the knees and hinging at the hips. And what we're going to do is you're going to have straight arm, and you're going to come straight up beside us and hold there, staying nice and controlled. So that's another option. Your third option is, if you don't have an anchor point with a band, you can see how my balance is. You can be here, holding with the left, right arm goes out to the side. Okay. So that is our third option. And then you would obviously switch to the other side. And again, give yourself lots of slack on that band. Getting back here with that little muscle is not always the easiest, so doing that. Okay, so hopefully everyone has found something that works for them. So making sure that arm stays nice and straight. When we come out here, I'm gonna actually raise my anchor point a bit. When we come out to the side, we're staying nice and straight the whole time, whether that's with a dumbbell or not. We're pulling that band across the body. Good. And then we're going to switch sides. So you're going to get the back of me. Help with visual or not, I don't know, but okay. So again, arms straight, and we're coming right out to the side here. Again, it helps with the anchor point. My anchor point slides a bit, but it helps with the anchor point being just under shoulder height or at shoulder height, if you do have the option to adjust that. I know for some of you have like the door hinge ability to move up and down the door, so finding this height would work. Otherwise, don't worry about an anchor point and do the other 2 modifications that I've given you. Good. And then we're going to rest there. Okay, so grabbing our dumbbell or object, whatever works for you. We're going to do some paint shakers. So paint shakers, if you have not been to a class where Megan has done paint shakers, you're going to have both hands on the end of an object. You're just going to think about shaking a paint can. And we're going to do this. And once you start getting that motion, you can think about how fast can I get the weight or the object back in towards me while staying, fairly straight without totally falling forward or falling backwards. So for some of you, you might not have a lot of core with this. And so finding the distance between you and out in front of you where you can stay nice and controlled. So for some, you might be able to go all the way out and not have much motion. For some of you, you might have to stay right here, and that's okay. Good. We got about 15 seconds here. So finding a good pace that you can stick with. And we're gonna rest there. Good. Okay, taking a minute. Catch your breath. Grab some water. We're gonna grab the band or your dumbbell, whatever you're doing for your post-out row. For this one, so those who are using band, continue using band. I'm gonna grab the dumbbell for those who are using the dumbbell. So you got a little more visualization to see here. So again, if you're using a dumbbell, you're leaning forward, arm's gonna be down towards the ground, and arm's gonna come straight up towards our side. You're using that band, making sure that band is staying nice and aligned with the shoulder and your arms staying nice and straight. Two more here, and then we're gonna switch sides. Exhaling as we pull the band across or the weight up. And switching sides. Exhaling up, or as that arm goes across. And 10. Good. Okay, and resting there, grabbing a weight or the object for your paint shakers. And we are going to start. So again, finding a distance between you and out in front of you where you can stay fairly straight. And then adding a little bit of force and speed once you find that spot. Good, and we are breathing here. Breathing as we push out. Five more seconds here. And rest, good. Okay, grabbing some water. We're gonna go actually into some core work here to finish off before we do some stretching. And for our core exercise, you can use the dumbbell or you can use a band if you have the ability to anchor the band up really high. So I'll let you decide that. So for the dumbbell, we're gonna do some wood shots. So if you have a band anchored really high, so imagining the band is up high and you can pull down towards your hip to the opposite side. Okay, so pulling down, keeping those arms nice and straight. If you have a dumbbell, you're gonna do the same thing, but just doing it with the dumbbell, holding it, keeping those arms straight as best you can. And we're resisting rotation today with this one. So you want to think how straight can I stay as I bring the weight down towards my hips from the opposite side above me. And then we're going to switch sides. Good. So we're going to switch sides here. So if you're starting up top on the right side of your head, we're going down to the left side of your hip. So right side of the head to left side of the hip. And then we're going to think about throwing down towards that hip once you find motion. Resisting moving that whole body. and 10. Good. All right. We're going to go into some stretching. So getting rid of those dumbbells. We're going to do an overhead lat stretch, like I said, from the beginning, where if you are tight in the lats, this is a great thing to do. So 2 different variations. If you have a wall, you can come up beside it parallel, and the arm that is against the wall, you're going to actually just have it dangling. The other arm that's away from the wall, you can reach up over and push into the wall. So you're going to have to find a good distance here, away from the wall, a couple inches, and then we're leaning into the wall, pushing into the wall. If you don't have a wall, you can put your hands out in front of you in the desk in front of you, or finding a height like a desk, and we're going to shoot those hips backwards, putting the head between our arms, and then we're going to push into the desk here. So finding stretch there that feels good. And we're going to hold this. For those that are doing it against the wall, you can probably switch to the other side now. And then again, we're breathing into that tightness, opening up those ribs, opening up chest here. Thinking about belly first, expanding, ribs next, then chest. And then exhaling down towards the spine. Good, and then we're gonna slowly release that. We're gonna bring the right arm across our body now. Left arm is gonna be at the elbow. And we're just gonna try and pull that arm across the body. We're gonna feel the stretch in our delts here. So for some, it feels good to have a hand on the opposite shoulder and help pull that elbow. For some, it's keeping that arm out nice and straight. Keeping the shoulders down. And then we're going to switch sides. So switching the arm. Breathing into that tightness. And then exhaling, we're going to tuck that chin in, bringing a nose to the right armpit, relaxing the opposite arm or tucking that arm behind you to get even a little more. And if you need even more, bringing that hand, that right hand, and helping pull the neck down towards the armpit. Breathing into that tightness. We're going to hold this here. Now seeing if we can go a little further to the armpit or a little closer to the armpit. One big inhale as we exhale, coming to center, unraveling, tucking the chin in, and we're going to go to the left. So bringing that nose to the left, right arm is dangling, right arm can also get tucked behind us if that feels good. Using that left hand to pull the neck down towards that armpit if you need a little more. Inhaling and exhaling down the neck, down the spine. One more big inhale. As we exhale and come back to center. And then we're going to finish with a pick stretch. So a couple different variations again. If you have a dowel, I know I didn't mention the dowel, but this is a good way of using it. You can use the dowel. So let's start with left hand is going to be open at the end of this dowel. Right hand is going to actually push the arm back. So kind of the hand is kind of beside the side of the head at about head height. And you can kind of feel that stretch in there, whether you want to go a little deeper into it. So we're going to hold that there. For those that don't have a dowel, you can park up against a wall and then roll forwards or lean forwards into it. Another option is finding a tender spot, pushing on that tender spot, having the arm out in front of us, and then just opening up the chest, just like so. Good. And then if you haven't already done so, we'll switch sides. So whether that's you using the dowel here to push out that arm, or you're using a wall, or just using your hand, finding a tender spot, and then stretching out. Good. More seconds here. Then we're going to finish with some breathing again. And releasing that. Okay, so we're going to go back to our breathing, thinking about ribs again. Lots of rib talk today. So what we're going to do is we're going to place both hands on our ribs again. And thinking about inhaling, expanding the belly, and then the ribs. And just taking notice. Maybe you're a little looser, maybe you get a little more expansion today. Bringing the belly button in towards the spine. And to finish with this, thinking about the ribs are 360 around us. And so when we breathe, we really want to think about inhaling our entire body, filling it all with air. And the ribs are a great indication that we're breathing that whole 360. One more big inhale. As we exhale, taking a minute here to shake that out. Hopefully everyone is feeling better, maybe a little more energized. Thank you everyone for joining in today. If you have questions, be sure to stick around and I can answer them with the form, any form questions. Otherwise, have a lovely day and I will see you all, I think, in a couple weeks again. So I will be around again. But thanks everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sierra. Wonderful as always.
No problem.
Awesome. And I will see you next week, or is Megan back next week?
I think Megan is back next week, and then the week after, I think, is me. So yeah, I'll be around.
Awesome. All right. I'll see you then. Thank you. Have a good one, everyone.
Jana speaking.
Thank you.
I learned some new things. Of course, I always learn from you, Sierra. Just like, oh.
Awesome. Yes, I always try and add in some new things. So I'm glad that you did learn something today.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. Yeah, thank you. Happy Easter.
Yes.